Welcome back. So I'm going to keep this particular video really short because the following videos I've actually taken from some of my strategy lectures. I think my strategy lectures do a little bit better job of providing industry and target market analysis than some of the entrepreneurship materials that are out there. So you're going to see me looking a little bit different with a little bit different hairstyle and in a different setting, but that's what's going to feed into. So the next few videos after this are going to talk about target and market feasibility analysis. Now let me give you just some broad questions to think about before you go into the following videos. With industry attractiveness, you've got to be careful. Industries are going to vary in terms of their overall attractiveness and whether you want to go into that industry or not. Okay, so think about this. Certain industries have vastly different profit margins. Okay, let me give an example. Retail, especially like grocery stores, their margins are like 1 to 2%, 3 in some like extreme cases. So if you're not comfortable with a 3% margin, then you probably don't want to go into grocery stores. Now another industry that has huge profit margins is pet food, right? A lot of pet food, they take food that is not fit for human consumption and they turn it into something that you can feed to pets. They basically take, I don't want to use the word garbage, but they take rejected organic material and they turn it into something that can be marketed and spruced up a little bit for pets. People will spend so much money on their pets and yet the basic ingredients are basically free. So if you like that kind of profit margin, that could be interesting. Another thing that you might look at in terms of industry attractiveness, maybe you don't want to work with people, maybe you don't want to have a lot of overhead. So perhaps something in IT or computer programming or app design might be a better industry for you, right? Other things that you might want to look at in terms of industry, again, there's the fashion industry. Fashion and actually perfume and cosmetics have huge profit margins. So you want to know a little bit about the basic characteristics of the industry you're thinking about entering before you actually go in. Okay? And there's some questions that you can ask about attractive industries. Now, these are stereotypical questions, and I'm going to just kind of poke some holes in it. They normally say that younger industries are more attractive than older industries. A new industry is up and coming and it's hot, and an older industry, maybe there's fewer opportunities. Well, older industries are also established, so you may be able to get a better feeling for what the gaps are by the same token. And that goes along with people saying that industries that are early in their life cycle are better off than those that are later in their life cycle. We talk about fragmented industries rather than concentrated industries, right? So for example, if you would like to get into the business of chemical solvents, like industrial products, well, this is going to be difficult because of the fact that there's a few major players in the market like 3M that make a lot of chemical solvents, and trying to compete with them could be difficult. Whereas if you want to open a barber shop, your only real competition is going to be about 10 miles from wherever you open up. So this might be quite attractive. At the same time, the profit margins or the amount of money that you can make on a barber shop versus a chemical solvents company is going to be very, very different. Industries that are seen as growing, growing demand for in that industry are seen normally to be more attractive than shrinking industries. But of course, since we're in entrepreneurship here, we also know about the rules of creative destruction. Just because an industry is shrinking doesn't mean that you can't make opportunities. Great example. Think of Cirque du Soleil. Yeah, circuses are a shrinking industry, and yet Cirque du Soleil was able to reinvent the circus and has done a great job of that. Or another example. When I was in the Army, and this was back in 2008, we still used those 3.5-inch floppy disks. Nobody had been using 3.5-inch floppy disks for like at least 6 years, right? That was a thing of the past. Yet the Army still bought them, and the company that sold those to the Army had a monopoly. They made money hand over fist. Okay? Are you also selling services, goods or services that customers must have versus goods and services that they'd like to have, right? And let me give an example. I know, and I've done consulting projects for a lot of martial artists. They own martial arts studios. They market their products to martial arts fans and fitness aficionados and things like that. And I hate to say it, martial arts is one of the first things people throw away when their budget gets tight, their spouse gets mad at them, whatever. That's one of the first things that they're not going to do anymore. Versus, most people aren't going to not buy milk. They'll find some way to buy their milk or their daily staples. Those are must-haves. Okay. Looking at industries that are not crowded. Again, going back to the barbershop example. If there's 5 barbershops within like a 2-mile radius, you probably don't want to open a barbershop right there. You might want to open it maybe in a different location. Looking at high versus low operating margins, again, Retail has very high operating margins. You got to worry about inventory, salaries, everything, so you don't make a lot of money. Versus the lower operating margins like you would find in perhaps an IT company. And then are not dependent on the prices of single materials. So for example, if you're a cheese maker, okay, the price of your product is highly dependent on the price of milk. So if milk spikes, then your cheese is going to spike, and that can put you in a bit of a bind. I was reading Howard Schultz's book on the starting of Starbucks, and there was some sort of a spike in demand for coffee beans, I think back in the mid-90s, and that really hurt Starbucks' profitability in the long term. Now they were able to do some adjustments and everything wound up being okay, but again, that's something that you need to consider. Well, fantastic. So in the next few videos, I'm going to turn you over to some of my videos from strategy, and this is going to basically give you all the really basic things that you need to know about how to do an industry analysis and also a market analysis at a very basic level. If you have any questions, as always, post them in the comments, or if you just have general comments, post them in the comments. Make sure you hit that like button, that's the thumbs up, and definitely subscribe. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next videos.